Hello, and welcome to the LLG vlog. You're with me, Dennis Hall, LLG Bulletin Editor, and as usual, Helen Bennett, LLG's Executive Director of Policy and Governance. Great to be with you once again, Helen.
Always lovely to be here with you, Dennis.
Excellent. Well, let's get underway. Our topic today focuses upon London and the major series of emergency announcements by the government concerning the role of the mayor, new planning powers, and changes to housing policy. Now, these changes represent a massive overhaul of both planning policy and procedures in London, and they are driven by the government's plan for change and the objective of achieving a building programme of 1.5 million homes during the current parliamentary term. What we're seeing here is a casting aside of barriers and obstacles in the planning system to encourage house building in London, where house building has recently been sluggish, to say the least.
Well, yes, I'd say so. I mean, the Mayor of London is to be handed new planning powers over large housing schemes and certain greenbelt developments in a bid to boost house building in the capital. That's the plan. Um,
Hmm.
I think under the changes, the mayor will be able to review and call in housing schemes of 50 homes or more where boroughs are minded to
Hmm.
refuse. Not sure at which point there'll be an indication of minded to refuse, but
Hmm.
um, City Hall will also become the decision maker regarding greenbelt developments of 1,000 square meters or more.
And the government also announced time-limited emergency powers that will allow a fast-track planning process for sites with at least 20% affordable housing. Now, these sites will be accelerated subject to a requirement for 60% of the affordable homes to be for social rent.
Mm.
Schemes which are consented under the new planning route, which do not build out in a timely way, will be subject to a gain share review mechanism, ensuring delivery of more affordable homes, above the 20% set out, where market conditions improve, the government added.
Yeah, I believe that the Greater London Authority will consult on the terms of the
Yeah.
new time limited planning route next month with the aim of having guidance in place, they say, at the earliest
Mm.
opportunity. That was in the announcement. Now, the new time limited planning route will be available until the 31st of March 2028 or the publication of the new London plan.
Mm.
Um, that's interesting because that
It,
could come a bit before. Uh, yeah, the changes also include a commitment to provide house builders with time limited emergency relief from the community infrastructure levy, which will apply to projects that commence after new regulations come into force um, before the 31st of December 2028, which sounds frightening, doesn't it?
it is massive changes that detail, but it's still
Mm.
a big set of changes that are being introduced. And back to the sill. The sill will be available for qualifying schemes which commit to delivering at least 20% affordable housing, and additional relief available at higher levels of affordable housing. Now, this proposal will also be consulted upon, as you say.
Yeah.
And in addition, some design restrictions will be withdrawn, with developers instead being handed far more flexibility so long as homes have adequate passive ventilation, daylight and privacy, and avoid overheating, the government added.
Mm. Well, I believe it also confirmed an initial 322 million to establish a City Hall Developer Investment Fund to support house building. The announcement comes as figures show house building in London has slowed. I understand that there was some research next last week, or it might have been the week before,
Mm.
by the residential development researcher who's called Mollier, which showed that the number of homes for private sale or rent under construction in the capital has fallen from what was 60 to 65,000 at any given time between 2015 and 2020 to 40,000 today. So that is quite a drop.
Yeah, it's massive.
I think it also predicted that this figure will fall by half again to 20,000 new homes under construction from
Mm.
January 2027. So that's just a sliding scale downwards.
Indeed, indeed. Well, let's look at who said what. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, said, "We've started more new council homes in London than at any time since the 1970s, and prior to the pandemic, completed more new homes in London than any time since the 1930s. He went on, but there's now a perfect storm facing house building in London due to a combination of high interest rates, the rising cost of construction materials, the impact of the pandemic, and the ongoing consequences of Brexit. And he went on, all of this means we're now in the midst of the most difficult period for house building since the global financial crash. And Khan concluded that urgent action is required, which is why I've been working with the government on this package of bold measures.
Mm. I like the Brexit reference. I mean, it obviously had impact, but it's
Yes, on a major
yeah,
capital it would, wouldn't it?
yeah. Um, so housing secretary, that's Steve Reed. I understand that he said, and this is this phrase I keep hearing, Dennis. We've talked about it on the podcast, getting spades in the ground.
Yeah,
Let's get the spades in the ground. Um, I don't know why, but just I find it amusing because
yeah.
it's
Well, here in the north we don't use spades, we use shovels, but that
uh,
might be a different kind of yes.
interesting. Of course. Well, it's obviously the tagline, isn't it? The sort of
Yeah.
media tagline he's using. So let's get spades in the ground. Um, he says it's crucial. They want to see the biggest increase in social and affordable housing and meet the target of delivering 1.5 million homes in the government's plan for change. And he's said as well that he's worked closely with the Mayor of London to give the capital the shot in the arm. That's a new one.
Mm.
Let's see if that
Yep.
comes again. It needs to ensure more Londoners have an affordable home of their own. And I think that's obviously the aim here. But London prices are really high,
Yeah,
Dennis.
yeah. The other buzz phrase, of course, and I'm afraid to say, I think it comes from across the water, across the Atlantic. Steve Reed used the phrase build, baby, build. It wouldn't be my choice of words, but I think I know exactly what he meant. Anyway, for a local view now, Councillor Grace Williams, London Council's executive member for housing and regeneration, said the chronic shortage of affordable housing in the capital is the root cause of London's skyrocketing rates of homelessness, with 1 in 50 Londoners currently homeless and living in temporary accommodation. If we want to end London's homelessness emergency, she said, we desperately need to build more affordable homes, including social homes. That will remain our priority as boroughs, she said, supported by the £11.7 billion announced for the capital through the Social and Affordable Homes programme.
Yeah. I mean, and homelessness is temporary accommodation in particular in London
Yeah.
is horrific because you've got it's families. Um, and we know that's really detrimental to children. So going on, she did say that the announcements from the government and the mayor represented a significant change in approach. Boroughs will now be looking at the proposed changes in detail to understand the implications for housing delivery in local areas. And ultimately, with boroughs already having granted planning permission for almost 300,000 homes in London that are yet to be built, they need to ensure house builders deliver on their commitments so that we can collectively tackle the housing crisis facing the capital. Now, that's a really important point
Yeah.
because we do know that the big link in the chain has been the amount of planning permissions that have been granted and then the
Mm.
lack of delivery on the build.
Yes.
And that is
Yes.
for a complex range of issues, but nevertheless.
Major issue with major problems. But let's look a bit closer at the element concerning social housing. This has been highly controversial. These plans come after new house building in London shrank to just a few thousand units a year, with developers saying that they are constrained by high interest rates and sluggish planning procedures. But the latest proposals have caused anger among homelessness campaigners and some Labour MPs, however, who say that the government is undermining its pledge to tackle homelessness.
Mm. Well, as I said, the package is set to expire on the 31st of March 2028. It's designed to kickstart building after a, 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 a decline, as we've discussed. I so Molia, who I referred to earlier,
Mm.
they've taken a look at this and they've done some research which showed that builders started work on just 3,248 private sector homes in the first 3 months of this year.
Yeah, it's some big problems there. And I think trying to analyze all of this in matters of housing, London is like no other part of the country,
Mm,
is it? Its pressures are
yeah,
often unique and complex. The pressures on the London housing market are truly enormous.
yeah, yeah. Well, yes, and the new measures I think represent a genuine desperate attempt to reverse the housing building crisis in London, which, as we said, has just absolutely shrunk to nothing. I think it's just a few thousand
Yeah.
units, as we've said.
I think an unusual feature of these proposals, Helen, and you mentioned this earlier, is that the measures are time limited and are expected to expire on the
Mm,
31st of March 2028. Clearly, government is desperate to see progress towards achieving its ambition of 1.5 million homes being
mm.
built. But, just to remind ourselves, we need to look at what precisely is the government's target.
Yeah. Well, I think this is time limited to put place pressure, isn't it? And
Yeah.
to get the delivery. Um, you've said the target's 1.5 million new homes. That's the target under the course of this parliament. And I think that amounts, I mean, being a lawyer, maths isn't my thing, but it's around three. Most people struggle with that in our profession, but 300,000 homes per year, as I
Yep.
understand it.
That's my understanding too. And this, of course, is a 5-year target, not an annual one, and
Yeah.
relies on a combination of planning reforms, a new generation of new towns, and an increase in affordable housing delivery. But the percentage requirement in London has been reduced as part of these measures. Many housing charities, I would say, consider this a really, really bad move.
Mm. Well, Dennis, the government has demonstrated, I think we have to say it, an extraordinary
Yeah.
determination here to get the housing market moving in London, but with a 3.5 year timetable left to the current parliament. And, there's so much else going on.
Mm.
Let's not forget about reorganisation. I know we're talking about London here, but nevertheless,
Yes.
the 1.5 million housing target does seem to be a long way off.
It does. But looking at the overall picture, uh, reflecting on this, you do wonder whether government is trying to change too much all at once across
Mm,
our sector. With reorganisation across large parts of the country, councils are going through dramatic change. Some councils disappearing, as we heard with the announcements for Surrey, and some, of course, about to be created. And then there's the immense financial pressures. Now, I was in an authority that was subject to LGR in 2008, and I can tell you that the abolition and transition issues that were involved utterly overwhelmed
mm.
all other considerations in the run-up to abolition.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, isn't it? But back to London, as we've identified, the London housing market has additional pressures of its own. But I think we can agree on this, Dennis. The government's ambition to build new homes and more affordable housing is undoubtedly the right one to have, I think.